Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of the MNCAA Gopher Show, episode 141. Back with you here, Nate Wells, joined as always by myself, Drew Cove. Here we are talking some more Gophers hockey. And Nate, this is the last regular season series of the year. We got a lot of different. A lot of hype, I guess, going into the series against Penn State in Penn State, and more on that in a little bit, especially from a firsthand account from one incomparable Nate Wells. But it turned out to be a little bit of a not lopsided affair, but a flip flop, I should say. Friday, it turned out to be a lot of trading leads, but one game was the opposite of the other. The Gophers lose in overtime on Friday night, but then they storm back and win Friday. Win on 5-3 on Saturday. Stumbling over my words as the podcast gets started. That's not a great omen. But Nate, let's just get started right on Friday. And to preface too, Gophers, they get the points they get out of this weekend. They end up tying with Michigan State for a share of the Big Ten regular season title. But because they lost to Michigan State, the season series to Michigan State, they are second in the conference, so they will not get the bye. They get to play Notre Dame. We'll talk about that near the end of the podcast. But just to kind of set the stage for what this weekend meant, and obviously it meant a lot for Penn State, as we'll chat in a little bit here. Nate, let's just jump into Friday, especially with the expectations. The Gophers had a chance to get the number one seed, and Penn State had a chance to continue the roll and put themselves in a much better position to make the NCAA tournament, which is still on the fritz, I should say.
Yeah, Penn State still has the possibility of making it. It's really going to come down to how they play against Michigan this weekend in the Big Ten quarterfinal. At the same time, the Gophers got off to a better start than we did in this podcast. They probably played their best 5 minutes of the game on Friday. Mm-hmm. During the first 5 minutes, strung together about 3 or 4 really solid shifts before let's see, I don't even have it before going up 1-0. And it looked like for about the first 10 minutes, it was Gophers were up 9-0 in shots, and something you almost never see at Pagula going into there. And the Gophers looked very dominant, but credit to Penn State. They were able to settle down. They're able to kind of work their way back. It went from 1-0 Minnesota to 1 Penn State. By the end of the second by the end of the second period, where I think we kind of saw that a couple weeks ago, where coming off of a series in Minneapolis, the same thing with Michigan, where the Gophers shut out Michigan 2 games, the Gophers shut out Penn State in 2 games at Berryucci, and once that Penn State was able to get that first goal, they got that second one really quick and kind of turned things around and put the Gophers a bit on their heels. Although that said, Minnesota did not look like they were out of it by any stretch of the imaginations, and got the tie. Were able to keep going back and forth, and eventually before overtime, it still looked like they were playing a solid game. And you could kind of see why both teams were able to bring out the best in one another in that Friday night game.
Yeah, and Nate, you mentioned the energy, just kind of being down 2-1 and not really feeling out of it. And obviously, we've talked so much at length about how this team just most of the time looks unfazed when they need to come back. But against a team that's as insurgent as Penn State has been, from flip-flopping from being just kind of looking like they were going to be a doormat for the start of the year, and then really competing and forcing the best out of Michigan State and Minnesota down the stretch. Who better than to break to get the first tie, regain the tie again at 2-2, than Statmaster Connor Kurth, as we pulled out last week. Nate, they hadn't lost when Connor Kurth scores a goal. So when he scored the goal to make it 2-2, I thought, either this dies with us or it looks real brilliant again. And it wasn't in regulation, obviously, but we broke the stat. We can say this podcast broke the Connor Kurth score a goal, win the game stat.
Well, the best thing for me was the first goal, and he scored twice this weekend, was Mason Nevers, and I was like, well, he's getting that shout out early in the podcast, getting both those goals.
Yes, Mason Nevers.
And I was like, Mason Nevers,
supremacy.
gotta get on there.
Yes.
I just get the realization in my head where I'm like, Jimmy Clark is hitting Strauss man territory where you have to say both those names at once. Like, no one's ever like, oh, there's Clark on the ice. Like, no, it's Jimmy Clark. You're saying both of them. But yeah, Mason Nevers got this one. Connor Kurth getting that tying goal, and he earned that goal as well. Something that, I mean, being in the building, and I'm not gonna lie, I was getting a little bit like up here, just a little choked up, just being back watching Gopher hockey in person, watching college hockey on a college campus, because it's been a bit. A lot of the college hockey I've seen in recent years are regionals, Frozen Fours, or you don't get that same atmosphere. And to me, like, just being around there, it reminded me of how much I love this game and how much just I enjoy being around it, and I don't take it for granted. And I hope anyone who goes regularly to college hockey games don't take that for granted either. But being there, one of the things I was trying to do was, because we know how resilient Minnesota is and how they're able to turn a deficit back on its heels and back on its head really quickly. And I'm just looking, once Penn State gets that second goal really quickly to make it 2-1 Nittany Lions, all I'm doing is everyone's celebrating around me. Everyone's wearing white. I'm the one maroon person here. And I'm just looking at Minnesota's bench, and their bench energy is just fantastic. Everyone's upbeat. Everyone's standing. They're fine. And just, you could see it in their play. And I'm like, that is the attitude. That's just really showing why they are so tough. It doesn't faze them. They take it seriously, but they're still there. It doesn't devastate them that they just gave up 2 goals in a couple of minutes and went from 1-0 to 2-1. And even when Penn State tied it 3-3 with a power play goal that it went off Brody Lamb's stick, it was unfortunate. Mm-hmm. They all go over to Luke Milstad, who I think it was Luke Milstad, who was was one of the Milstads who's in the penalty box. They all come over there and come after him. They're like, it's cool. It's okay. We got this. It's fine. And yeah, to me, I'm like, this is something I've not seen covering Gopher hockey for a long time. And just to watch that and kind of see that energy. And it came over a little bit on Saturday. You could kind of see that little bit difference. And in this kind of game, in these 2 games playing against, I mean, I think Penn State is certainly a tournament team, and they have the ability to be a tournament team, regardless of how this weekend goes for them. Like that, those are those things that make the difference against those top teams.
Exactly. And who else than Jimmy Clutch himself to break to once again tie the game, to force the overtime on Friday, because he's been a guy that, especially Nate, you prefaced all of what you just said, I think encapsulates what Jimmy Snuggerud has meant to this team this year. It's like, all right, he's the guy who's led by example, who has been calm under pressure, who has delivered when it counts. And there he goes again in a pretty pivotal game against Penn State. They're down 3-2 late in the third, and I think, 7-8 minutes left or something like that. He just rips a shot that, like, one of few. I mean, as talented as the Gophers are, there's not a lot of guys who can make that shot that are on this roster, and he just makes it, and boom, they're back in it, and they have enough energy to even just get to overtime and just to salvage a point out of it. We'll get to the overtime in a second, but I think that just shows how it was such a Jimmy Snuggerud kind of game. The whole weekend really was too, but I mean, what a Jimmy Snuggerud game, and especially for him to get rewarded to basically, I think he's pretty much the reason they got that extra point on Friday's game. But Nate, let's move to overtime. Boy, yeah. What a stinker. I mean, can't get a face-off win, can't get possession, and Penn State just running circles around, and obviously some over and back type stuff that makes you just the eyes roll into your back of your head. But it's everybody does it, and it's just annoying when it's when it takes 4 minutes for one exciting thing to happen, regardless of what you want the result to be. It wasn't a good result for the Gophers because they lost, and obviously 2, it just was one of the most unexciting overtimes ever.
It was not an exciting overtime. No, the Gophers had the puck, I think, 3 times in the Penn State zone. I don't think he had a single shot. Like, they didn't even have like a single pass or whatever.
The one was kind of like a toe drag move from Chesley.
Chesley tried to toe drag. They got the puck deep once, and then I think it just got taken off the stick the third time. It was It was not fun. It took them, I think, 30 seconds to get out of their zone. And one of the other times, he literally just held the puck there. At a point where I'm like, well, maybe we'll get to the shootout. And then why am I thinking this? I'm like, oh, okay, they're going to go for the shootout. This will be great. We've seen Minnesota in the shootout. We talk about it all the time. But yeah, the Gophers, they're probably thankful right now that 3-on-3 overtime's done. Shootouts are done for the year. They can go back to 5-on-5 where they really shine. And yeah, I wanted to touch at least take it back 1 second or one period back with that Jimmy Snuggerud. Like you could kind of feel him starting to build up in that third period where I was even before when it was 2-2, I started to feel like, I'm like, okay, Jimmy Snuggerud is going to get that third goal. Like, I don't know how it's going to happen or whatever, but like he was getting those opportunities. He was setting people up. He was creating chances. He took a penalty just out of him then there too, and then still just made it up on that end. The downside of that was he took a penalty and then Milstead took a penalty like the second that.
Yeah, the 2 in a row.
That Snuggerud on the ice, and that's tough. It's tough to kill 2 in a row. But you felt that Jimmy Snuggerud was able to kind of slowly take a game over. And I mean, that is not an easy thing to do in college hockey. It's very difficult when you're facing a team that is almost shading over and trying to stop you from scoring and taking advantage of that. When Minnesota had their power play, they were literally cheating towards Jimmy Snuggerud for the slapper, and they're able to be successful on that. And it's just, he's that good where even when you know what's going to happen, he is able to be.
It's college Ovechkin.
I mean, he is college Ovechkin.
Yeah.
College Ovechkin.
Yeah. Same spot, same result.
Yep.
You do all you can to prepare for him, and somehow he finds himself open in the circle and ready to rip an NHL caliber shot. But so Gophers fans, you got only a few opportunities left to see him. I mean, last opportunity really, I think, to see him. I guess maybe one more after this, but not too many opportunities.
They'll have one. I was going to say, yeah. You have, there's somewhere between 3 and I would say there's somewhere between 2 and 4 opportunities in Mariucci.
To see him play home games at Mariucci for the rest. Yeah, no more home games at Mariucci for Jimmy Snuggerud after these next couple weekends at the most. So, if you're thinking about going and you want to maybe see a pretty good game, there's the Notre Dame games this weekend, as we'll talk about in a little bit. But Nate, let's move on to Saturday. Let's talk about a regulation win. No overtime, no shootout, funny business. Each team had a power play goal. Some pretty wild power plays for either side, and obviously one that ultimately sunk Penn State. But it was a little bit of a different start as the Gophers got off to the hot start on Friday. Penn State got the lead early and then flipped it back on Penn State. The same kind of thing, up 1-0 down to a 2-1. Flip around for the Gophers, so they ended up leading 2-1. But just trading ties back and forth, and then did it really change there near the end of the second period? Nate, why don't you walk us through what you saw? Because obviously the TV broadcast didn't do a great. Didn't have a great shot. It's not the broadcast fault. It's just the camera. The puck was on one side and the camera kind of panning over. Didn't really have an opportunity to catch the hit off the puck.
It's a bit away from the puck. Ryan Chesley hits a Penn State player. It looks like it's slightly high. The refs call nothing. And I will say this, the refs were pretty much consistent in you had to really draw a penalty to draw a penalty. This weekend. Refs let it go. I thought at first, I was like, ooh, that looks like that might have got him in the head. That's not good, but the refs let it go. Out of sight, out of mind. The puck continues to be played. Jimmy Snuggerud makes a great play to score a beautiful goal to put Minnesota up 3-1. Penn State, as Guy Godowski is prone to do, challenges for the head hit 2 minutes prior.
Yeah, so the goal happens at about 30 seconds remaining.
The goal. The
hit in question happened 2 minutes beforehand when there wasn't any stoppage between the 2:30 mark and the 30 seconds.
So this was the first stoppage that they could actually go and review it. And at this point, Minnesota was up, creating. Pretty much, I spent the previous about 5 minutes just controlling play. Penn State's a little down. That third goal looked like it deflated them. Refs go and check it out. The view I have from my seat and the view that I'm looking at on the screen about 150 feet away. It wasn't a great one. I'm trying to figure out what fully happened. But like, at least from afar, I'm like, okay, well, it looks like it might be a little bit, but I'm sure the refs have a much better view on it. Took about 2 or 3 minutes. They came out. Chesley gets a 5 and a misconduct.
Mm-hmm.
So he's gone. Penn State has a 5-minute major. It goes from back down to 2-1. About 30 seconds into the major, Penn State scores. So you go from a 3-1 Gopher lead to a 2-2 game. The crowd is nuts.
Mm-hmm.
You basically have flipped momentum on their heels. Penn State has another 2 minutes to try to take the lead before the end of the period. Minnesota kills the rest of it. But that was just it's too bad that no one will remember that Jimmy Snuggerud goal. Like I saw it, I was there. Mm-hmm. But it was a thing of beauty. It's too bad that I'll never forget you, Jimmy Snuggerud goal. That doesn't count.
You'll be the only one that remembers it because it'll be a Jimmy Snuggerud goal that doesn't count, and it's in those taconite sweaters everyone wants to forget for some reason. God. And so it's who knows? Maybe that will just be kind of expunged from collective memory soon enough. Except for Nate. Nate will remember.
I can cross off. I saw the taconite sweaters in person, and exactly. You know, I will say this: my wife thought they were the ugliest things that she has seen. So,
well. There's a Penn State and Penn State fan and a bunch of Gophers fans that might actually finally have something in common. is that statement right there? But Nate, it turned into obviously you said it definitely flipped the momentum and flipped the feeling there in the game. But I thought what a turnaround game for Matthew Wood from Friday to Saturday. He gets a goal, and then. I mean, Jimmy Snuggerud, I mentioned him as Jimmy Clutch. I think he's going to have some competition for that nickname. Jimmy Clutch could mean Jimmy Clark too. What a pass for the lead. Oh man, that pass to Kester was just unreal. And I mean, I want to keep Jimmy Clark could have 40 points next year. And this is probably just on the heels of watching a couple good weekends in a row and being really excited. But I feel like he's going to have a junior season for the ages, especially with all the opportunity to go around. I think next year, I think he's going to be an incredible performer next. And that's not to discount what he's doing right now. He's obviously showing us right now what he's got and what he's made of, but man, he's continually impressed and done even cooler things seemingly every single week.
This is where you're hoping that he's finding that consistency. He's able to build upon this. And it was a really nice. I was so happy for Mike Kester to get that goal because you know what, especially because he stepped up in that spot where you don't usually see Ryan Chesley. So it's to have that opportunity to have that opportunity in his last regular season game. It felt really nice. And man, the Gophers created a lot of good chances from, Matthew Wood had a breakaway in the first couple of minutes of the game where they kind of started to show where Penn State goalie was going to be on. He was showing that he was on that night, and he certainly was on Saturday, where he made Minnesota earn their goals. And it speaks to the Gophers how well and how offensively talented they are. I mean, come on, they lead the nation in goals, so obviously they are very talented. Mm-hmm. But I think against another goalie at another night, this is a performance where Minnesota has about 6-7 goals, and you wouldn't be shocked on that one.
Sergeyev was really, really good.
He was really good. I mean, during that 5-minute major where also, again, it happened in front of me where I saw it happen. I'm like, that's definitely a 5-minute major, but the angle that they're showing for the camera, I cannot tell you what the refs are going to see it. I guess they got a better angle too. But just watching it and seeing how he was playing against Minnesota and just having those opportunities. The Gophers had about 4 or 5 really good chances in that major before Kester finally scored and kind of hit the one that they needed. Because I feel like if Minnesota doesn't score on that 5-minute major, it's certainly a different game, it's a different weekend, and it just
the Gophers you're gripping your sticks to get to overtime, and then you realize they have had a couple of losses, and they have been, I think. Yeah, the overtime and shootouts have not been overly kind. Obviously, shootouts haven't been, but overtime hasn't been overly kind to them lately either. So you just wonder, oh man, they could have had a week off. Obviously, they did all they could in the end in the second game, but now they have to play again against a pretty underpowered Notre Dame team. But also, all right, would they have just been man, we had all this chance ahead of us, and now we're gripping our sticks because we could see overtime on the horizon. And a definite second place finish.
And it's the difference between finishing as co-champs versus finishing second. And I mean, that is a big difference where you look at the record books and 10 years to be like, oh, Minnesota.
Yep.
They erased the banner. There's going to be a Big Ten. There's going to be a Big Ten co-champs or whatever, Big Ten champions, 24-25 banner in Mariucci. Like that is a huge difference when you're going out and trying to score on a major that you have a great opportunity for, and that you are moving around and trying to find a way past a goalie that has played extremely well throughout this game.
Yeah, Nate, speaking of goalies, let's move on to just talk about the weekend as a whole.
Yes.
Liam Souliere return weekend, the place he played for a number of years as the starter for Penn State, now came to try and spoil. I mean, really, he did do his best job to try and spoil. I think, what are they, 15th in the pairwise now, something like that. And I mean, that's on the fringe. That's not on the right side of 13 or 14, with all the conference champion bids. But Nate, what did you see from the Souliere festivities? I know you had a few notes that you mentioned you might want to talk about, but what did you like from him in net this weekend? And two, what kind of what was the atmosphere like amongst the whiteout cheering against their former goaltender?
Oh, the Roar Zone. The Roar Zone usually play Minnesota, and I've gone to a couple of them during Thon where just they're not really there, and I've gone to a couple during winter break where they're not there, and I've gone to a couple covering where it's a regular game, and there are people there. And normally it's like they're big on their team or anything, but there's not like kind of a hatred between Minnesota and Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Liam Souliere returning kind of brought it out of the Roar Zone, and it was a point where literally every time that he was in net during warmups, they are booing, they're cheering any goals that goes in. I'm just like, hey, they're cheering for the Gophers. Great job. The second that he gets introduced as the starting goalie both nights, it's booed loud enough you cannot hear his name being said. He was calm. He was cool. I thought he did a good job in that. The goals that were scored were either, again, high caliber shots, or the few times that Penn State was able to get in front and kind of create rebounds, which has certainly been a strength for them over the past month. Minnesota did a great job limiting them. I thought also the Gopher defense did a great job limiting Aiden Fink, who has been really hot, and he was almost non-existent this entire weekend. Penn State did a fantastic job getting secondary scoring and coming back in games where they're either trailing by one or did go ahead. Other than the Jimmy Snuggerud goal that only I remember doesn't count. So other than the empty net goal on Saturday, there was no 2-goal leads this entire weekend. But yeah, the crowd was they had a lot of chants for Souliere. They were not happy. I felt like every stoppage he was looking up just the small sliver of maroon, and it just slightly away from the Roar Zone. Just to try to kind of reset and everything. And literally the second that Oliver Moore gets the game winner, on the empty net on Saturday, he just does like a nice little stick salute in my direction. So I'm like, I think it's for me. I'm assuming I'm the only maroon person, Gopher fan in this area. So yeah, it's like, all right, yeah, we got it. They got it. You got to win. And then and then for the first time all weekend, he goes and turns and interacts with the Roar Zone. The Gopher fans, the Gophers, because that was the end where the goalie was. The second that they won, all come down and congregate and cheer and congratulate him, and celebrate because they won the co-champs of the Big Ten. So they kind of had fun on that one. It was also interesting because I don't know if this is the case just in general, but the first period after Friday's game, everyone kind of came out and gave him a fist bump and everything too. Just I wasn't sure if that's just a Penn State thing or that's just how it was just in general. What happens with the goalies this year?
Interesting. Yeah, no, it was my brother is a grad student at Penn State. He started this year, and I was asking him, you getting tickets? He's like, no, they were too expensive. He's like, they were really hard to get, and
they were legit. They were legit sellouts both nights.
Yeah. So, and especially it'd be nice to see another sort of rivalry. I guess you can't have a border battle with a team that's not in the Midwest. Penn State is not a Midwest team. Yeah. Sorry, anyone who thinks that. I get it. I can't deal with that. But Pennsylvania is not the Midwest. If it's that close to the ocean, no chance. But I think Penn State.
It's a weird. Pennsylvania's in this weird spot of it's the Midwest, it's the East Coast, it's Kentucky, it's like a bit of everything. Like so state college is like straight up in the middle of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Like you get there, you've earned your way out there. Like for anyone, I would say if you ever get the chance to go out to state college for a series, please go out there. Like you'll enjoy yourself. It's really fun. It's a great atmosphere. And like it was fun. Like 'cause Friday night was their wear white game, so everyone's wearing white. The big change I've seen from going out there for about a decade now, either covering as a journalist or going out there because it's the closest series to me where I live, is they've always been Penn State fans. There's always been hockey fans and like hockey, but like it's finally feels like, and like Penn State has had club hockey before the D1 era. My wife like worked with that before they were there. That's kind of her connection to the team and how it's like some of her friends were kind of that same. We're in that same group. So there's always been, there's things that predate D1 hockey. Like the announcer, Ronnie Hood, they honored him because it was his 25th year announcing the games. But it kind of feels like in the last couple of times I've gone that bringing everything together, like they have their like Penn State D1 hockey traditions. Like it's there. It takes time. You have to build it up, but it's certainly, it has happened. And it's not just a mishmash of different eras, different kind of allegiances or whatever. Like it's certainly, it's what Guy Godowski and Nate Jensen kind of said the first year, what they always wanted to see is like, be something that unites Pennsylvania and college hockey in that area. And I believe it really has. For that one.
And when you can play competitively early on and you can have those weekends like we had with the Ryan Lindgren and Evan Barrett situation that people remember, and you can have weekends like this where it almost like it's more of a rivalry than most of old WCHA teams have with the Gophers currently. So I mean, it's obviously a conference rival, but it's also like, all right, they don't have like a big history playing, but like they're building it right now, and this is something that's going to be important for college hockey as it goes on, as these teams play more. I mean, they play at least four times every year. It's going to be there's still a lot of chance for a lot of these fun rivalries to develop, and obviously it's Penn State and it's a far off land from Minnesota, but it's competitive hockey, and sometimes it seems like the teams just don't like each other, so it's always a little bit more fun when there's a little bit of that aspect in it too.
It really is. And I would just say for anyone, if you get the chance, take a college hockey road trip, meet opposing fans. You're going to have a great time. There's a reason we're all students. And we all love this game. And just, it is really fun. The other thing I just remembered, I did not mention throughout Saturday's game in the student section and everything. It was like a drinking holiday for all the students beforehand. So they were already, they came prepared for an 8:00 start.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So that was, it was an interesting name. It was a fun time. And yeah, Drew, I think at some point you and I next year, we have to go, because we have done road trips before, but we have to find a series to go out and just watch, because I miss being in person for college hockey.
Yeah. Well, I think next year, it's on my to-do list to go to the Penn State series next year as well. So my brother will still be there, and I'll have a good chance to go visit him in his new neck of the woods. So, but yeah, Nate, I think that puts kind of a good bow on the weekend as a whole. I mean, the Gophers are still set up very well for the postseason. Played a good series against a very competitive team that gave even Minnesota's biggest challenge this year, Michigan State, gave them fits very recently as well. So I think it's very good for the conference that Penn State has become very good once again. And I think the Gophers just, again, set themselves up to be successful. And I think even the co-championship thing helps a little bit, because knock on wood, nothing goes wrong, but they get to play another weekend without taking a week off to rest, and then playing a game, and then maybe losing, and then taking two weeks off, and then the tournament starts. It's like they just get more and more and more reps to just keep things going. So, and that might be a blessing in disguise, who knows? But just a very, despite the overtime, I think it was a very good 2 games played by the Gophers at a pretty hostile away rink.
Yeah, the Gophers showed why they are a top 3 team in the nation this weekend, and it is tough to win. It is tough to win in that type of environment on the road, and that they showed that they can shut down teams' top players. They have the depth to overcome poor performances and a little bit of undisciplined play. There's certainly a lot for Bob Moscow to show in the film room during this week, and I also kind of think you hit on something there where the Gophers kept the co-champs, but they still have to play the first round. That is something that we've seen Bob Moscow not be a big fan of the bye in past years. So it's almost like, hey, you get what you get what you want. You're still champions, but you're still going to end up playing the 7th seed.
Yeah, and let's get to that too. Let's get to the Gophers' upcoming opponent quickly. We'll go around the conference here. As Ohio State and Michigan played. They played Ohio State beat Michigan 2-1 in overtime on Thursday. Michigan won the finale 4-3 in regulation on Friday. Ohio State will play Wisconsin in the first round. Michigan State, they swept the Gophers' upcoming opponent, Notre Dame. Notre Dame's last home regular season series, Jeff Jackson's regular season finale. As the coach of the team, he's been behind the bench for a very long time. But Michigan State sweeping Notre Dame, they were already locked in to play whoever the 2nd seed was going to be, which happens to be Minnesota. So the Gophers get a 3-gamer, a 3-game if needed, and that might be a little. My tone there might be a little indicative of how I think the series is going to go. But I mean, the Gophers they have the ability to play a team that they've had a lot of success against this year, and a lot of the Big Ten has had a lot of success against them this year. But a good way to keep playing against a just competitive college hockey team looking to keep to somehow keep their season alive just a little bit longer to make it to the second round. But yeah, obviously if the Gophers make it, they get the winner of Ohio State, Wisconsin, which I would think would be Ohio State. So obviously a lot on the line the next couple of weeks, Nate, but we get Notre Dame this weekend and in a potential 3-gamer, but should be a very interesting one to see just how they keep the rust off going forward.
It's always tough to end a team season, and it's made clear this time of year how hard it is to end a season. Notre Dame, especially, they're not just playing for themselves or their season; they're playing for their head coach, and to have that in there.
The guy who's meant so much to the program and USA Hockey. Yep, the guy who's been so influential on the game of college, just the college development game. I mean, like the NTDP, as we talked about with former guest of the show, Sam Jeffries, and just how instrumental he was in kind of revolutionizing the American development model has been just so important to where college hockey is today, that it can be so competitive as it is, that we see it week in and week out.
It certainly is. And I mean, even when Notre Dame just went to Mariucci in January, I mean, they took the Friday game in overtime, they took the Saturday game in overtime. We were able to kind of take those points, and in hindsight, obviously, like Minnesota struggles in the shootout and struggles in the overtime are certainly the difference between having the bye and being co-champs. But at the same time, yeah, it's going to be some really good quarterfinals. Wisconsin, Ohio State have just been some really fun games. Ohio State's had Wisconsin's numbers. I always feel like I keep thinking like that, like Mike Casey just has like one last trick up their sleeve to maybe like give a little bit of throw a wrench a little bit. Ohio State's plan. Yeah. Ohio State. I mean, for as much as I watch, I didn't think it was Ohio State like Ohio State had a poor performance. I don't know how much of it was Michigan versus like what Ohio State did in that weekend series. They got the OT win on Thursday, but that Friday game was not as close as as the score indicates. Obviously, Michigan State sweeping up Notre Dame. That's kind of what we expected. And Wisconsin, they played the U18 team and lost, but I mean, it's an exhibition game the last week of the season. Like, I don't even know how much. I don't think you put stock in an exhibition game to begin with. I think this is probably it's like the non-conference shootout version of putting like stock into an exhibition game. Like, it really doesn't count.
Well, and Wisconsin is just the most. I mean, they're as unpredictable as Michigan, but just bad. But just like worse. Like their floor is a lot lower than Michigan's floor. Like Michigan can get blown out 6-0 at a game, but like also Wisconsin can do it and just do it for like 3 weeks straight, and then they can all of a sudden like turn it on for a weekend. So they're both very, very up and down in that respect. So I don't know. I just see this. I see this Wisconsin Ohio State series being like, all right, Wisconsin either wins like 5-2 or like loses like just 8-0 or something. Something just drastic. Either way is going to be just funny to watch. When
it's going to be if they get swept, that Saturday game is going to be like the most like undisciplined thing like we've ever seen.
Oh,
like it's going to be like 4 game misconducts. Like Hastings is going to throw his team under their bus after the game. Anyways, like every time like you ever look like Mike Hastings coach, the season's gone along, it's kind of gotten like more and more like throwing shade at it. He is not. I don't like. You can tell that he is not happy with how his team has turned out with this year, and I think he's going to go a little bit more back to the drawing board.
Yeah,
he certainly has. Like he has the players that like he has some players that he wants. There's certainly something to build around in Wisconsin, but the players he brought in the transfer portal didn't really pan out, and just you know what. When you're trying to run a little bit more with grit and sandpaper in a conference that is full of stars. You need to have your team identity kind of just understood and just the team playing for something, and just that never really came together for Wisconsin. I mean, it really hasn't come together for Michigan. Michigan though has the skill and the stars, and I mean Hughes has pretty much been one of the top players in college hockey the last couple of months, or one of the hottest players. So they still have the skill to kind of overcome that, but compare those two teams that are still kind of figuring themselves out versus the Penn State, who like they know their identity, and that's really apparent over the last month or so. They're opportunistic in a very positive way, where they might not get the best chances. They might not be able to outshoot a Minnesota or a Michigan State, but they have good goaltending. They're very defensively sound, which is something that's been missing from past Penn State teams. And when they create the good their chances, they are creating some solid grade A chances, and that's really why they're in the position that they're in right now. It makes that series more than anything. It's at Yost, so Michigan has that little bit of the upper hand. We've seen the Wolverines be able to flip that switch at the end of February, March, and they probably played their best little stretch of hockey the last couple of weeks, but then also so has Penn State. And this is a series where I think Michigan has more outs. Penn State still might be able to sneak in if they lose. But both teams have to look at it and the winner of this series is in the NCAA tournament. The loser is probably out or needs a lot of help.
Yeah. After watching Penn State, Nate, I think, I believe a lot in what they're doing. They seem very sound, very disciplined, and they can do it without Aiden Fink. If they can do it without him, if they can do it without him and look that good against Minnesota, I think if he contributes even just a little bit against Michigan, I think they're destined to win that series. But Nate, I just wanted to comment on your Wisconsin note as well. Just that you said, oh man, if they had the star power, if only they could get a guy like, I don't know, like Cole Caulfield or like Luke Cunnin or something like that. Guys who had success in college. Where did they play? Oh yeah, they played at Wisconsin when they couldn't win anything, and they didn't have any of the structure that they have now. It's amazing how just back and forth that goes.
Charlie Stramel is at Michigan State. William Whitelaw's in Michigan. Yep. I mean, that's the thing. Mike Hastings got Mike Hastings players in, but like this does not look like a Mike Hastings team.
Nope.
Which
it's a different world in the Big Ten.
It's certainly a different world. Yeah.
A much different world in Big Ten versus CCHA life. So Nate, I think that puts a bow on our mini tournament preview here as we get a few big quarterfinal series of the Big Ten tournament. We'll both be back with you all to document what happened against Notre Dame and what might be upcoming for the Gophers. If it's Ohio State, if it's Wisconsin, if it's resting for a few weeks, who knows? We really don't know what's going to happen, but we'll be here to talk about it all with you as always next week. So thanks for listening, everybody. For Nate, I am Drew, and until next time, we'll see you at the rink.